U.S. Senator Marco Rubio is visiting Israel amid tensions over recent airstrikes on Hamas leaders in Qatar and settlement expansions in the West Bank. Now, Rubio has stressed upon the strong U.S.-Israel relationship but has raised concerns about how the strikes impact efforts to free the 48 hostages held by Hamas. Now, he has highlighted the urgent need to release all the hostages and challenges ahead in rebuilding Gaza, with questions over who will lead and fund the recovery. The airstrike on Doha drew condemnation from countries across the world and disrupted ceasefire negotiations which were being brokered by Qatar. Meanwhile, Israel's nearly two-year campaign in Gaza has caused over 64,000 deaths, and the United Nations has warned of a worsening humanitarian crisis. Rubio's trip follows a White House meeting with Qatar's Prime Minister and precedes President Trump's planned visit to the United Kingdom. Growing international moves to recognize Palestinian statehood is facing opposition from Israel and the United States, which now fears that it could strengthen Hamas. Tensions are rising further after Israeli Prime Minister Netanyahu approved West Bank settlement expansions, prompting the UAE to issue warnings that this threatens the Abraham Accords and regional stability. Listen in to what U.S. Senator.
But that said, it's not going to shake our relationship with Israel. Is going to remain strong. And sometimes, things happen or come up in those relationships that perhaps you're not 100% aligned with or what have you. But it's not going to change the nature of our relationship with the Israelis. But we are going to have to talk about it. Primarily, what impact does this have? What happened? What impact does that have moving forward on what comes next? We just want to know what comes next. How do we get the 48 hostages out? What's the plan to defeat Hamas? So we can get to the next phase. I'm going to get a much better understanding of what their plans are moving forward. What's happened has happened. Obviously, we were not happy about it. The president was not happy about it. Now we need to move forward and figure out what comes next. Because at the end of the day, when all is said and done, there is still a group called Hamas, which is an evil group.
There, of course, we've heard Marco Rubio stating that the current U.S. administration is not happy with what transpired in Doha. Meanwhile, joining us on the broadcast is Dr. Punsara Amarasinghe. He's from the Kotalawala Defence University, joining us from Colombo in Sri Lanka. Thank you so much for taking our time speaking to us on NewsX World. A lot of high-octane developments are taking place in the Middle East. We do know recently there was a UNGA resolution that has been endorsed by more than 140 countries for the recognition of the state of Palestine. That's not all. We've seen recent strikes take place in Doha. The Qatari Prime Minister meet with Donald Trump and Marco Rubio at the White House as well, and now Rubio is headed to Israel. The focus of the Trump administration is to ensure that negotiations still continue even as Netanyahu is intensifying his offensive on the ground in Gaza. Where do you see the war headed next? Do you think the United States could convince Netanyahu to back down?
I think Marco Rubio's visit is quite decisive in these uncertain times, because from one side he has to make a balance between Israel and the other Gulf allies who have been standing in favor of the United States for a pretty longer period since the end of the Gulf War. We need to understand that United States during the Bush administration in the early 1990s assured complete regional security for these Gulf allies, and there is a considerable United States military presence in Gulf that includes Qatar as well. But Israeli strike on 9th of September, which can be described as the Qatari 9/9 experience, has completely altered this geopolitical situation, and it has led to a deep entanglement between Americans and also with the Middle Eastern allies. But the Rubio's visit probably will be a kind of a signal giving to the Gulf allies some sort of a legitimacy. At the same time, in Israel, I think if you just refer to the statements made by the US diplomat Rubio before he started his visit to Israel, it was quite clear that his main task is to accelerate the peace negotiation between Hamas and Israel to bring the hostages back. So which we need to understand as one of the key decisive signs from President Trump's administration. Trump has not completely abandoned the plan of bringing hostages safely back to Israel, because from Israeli point of view, the safety and well-being of their hostages who are being detained under the Hamas captivity is paramountly important. But at the same time, if you look at this Rubio's visit from a strategic level, he has a huge task to accomplish. From one side, he needs to reassure whatever the promises, whatever the credibility that the Gulf countries were having towards United States back on the track. Because I know the Hamas has been staying in Qatar since 2012. So they thought they looked at Hamas, they looked at Qatar as a kind of a safe haven, which was simply shattered by this recent attack. Right. So now Hamas leaders are equally aware of the fact that they're not safe anywhere else. Even in Qatar, they were targeted by the Israelis. So it's a kind of a dangerous sign. So the Rubio's visit will address on these critical issues in the day.